Jacob's Ladder Africa is a sustainable development hub that advances the agenda of youth in Africa towards self-reliance and productivity. They seek to alleviate the current state of insufficiency among the youth and empower them as the continent's future leaders to enable them to forge a new pathway for themselves and others. Jacob's Ladder Africa seeks to activate 30 million jobs in the green economy by the year 2033. This is its mission. And its vision is an integrated, independent and fruitful Africa, emboldened and empowered to chart unique pathways to her highest potential. Jacob's Ladder Africa, in collaboration with Moringa School, held a Technology for Climate Action Hackathon that challenged young people to develop innovative tech-based solutions to address the impact of climate change in Kenya. The topics for the Technology for Climate Action Hackathon were food security and waste management. For food security, the task was to develop a system that links farmers to information on prices and agricultural produce and access to markets to optimize food distribution in the most vulnerable areas affected by food insecurity in Kenya. The goal is to increase food distribution to food insecure areas while optimizing access to information on prices. For waste management, the task was to design a smart waste collection system that allows citizens to segregate the various types of waste they want to dispose of and enables county governments to effectively collect waste and other partners to recycle collected waste. The goal is to improve the methods of waste disposal and increase efficiency in the collection and recycling of waste. The judges of the day were Dorothy Maseke, Head of Risk and Compliance at ICEA Lion Group, Lizzie Binea Misa, Partner at E3 Capital, Marcus Watson, Partner at Kawi Safi Ventures, and Francis Kahindi, Founder of Tech Prescribed. Around 88 applications were received, and a number of presentations and elimination rounds later, we arrived at 7 presentations on the final day, which was the 15th of December 2022. Warafam, headed by Vera Kwamboka and David Nene, emerged the winner for their AI-powered solution to mitigate the inefficiencies in food supply chains as a way to tackle food insecurity in the country. The solution they created decentralizes supply chain processes and increases access to information by farmers and tools they need to improve on their outputs. In second place was Okoa Waste, which seeks to provide urban waste management solutions. And in third place was Kambare, that seeks to close the gap in access to high-quality, affordable aqua feeds. This was also my very first time hosting an event as an MC, and I got to do it alongside my co-host Denise Wamboi of Moringa School.
Looking back at how the tech ecosystem evolved in Kenya, we think there's interesting lessons that can be drawn to make sure that we accelerate the same for the climate ecosystem. And that's why Jacob's Ladder is quite deliberate at making sure that we are preparing our young people to take advantage of the emerging and growing green economy sector.
My name is Snehar Shah. I'm the CEO at Moringa School. So Moringa School is a tech training institution. We provide vocational training for students who have left ideally high school, and we run a bootcamp model where we train them in software engineering, data science, product design, and we do various other upskilling courses. Our mission is to give opportunities to the youth in Africa, where in this day and age they don't really need to go to university. They don't need to spend 3 or 4 years and tens of thousands of dollars going to university with a view to getting a job. They can actually come to a place like Moringa School, where we run an intense bootcamp model, and we can train tech talent within 6 months, and our mission is to place as many as our graduates into dignified, well-paying tech jobs. As much as half our intake ends up being university graduates, many with computer science degrees who can't get jobs, so they come to Moringa, where we retrain them and help them get placed into jobs. And then in terms of where this tech talent is working, of course there are the big techs who are coming here, the Googles, Microsoft, AWS, they're setting up shop here. There's remote working is becoming a reality, and also a lot of startups are coming up in different elements. I mean, fintech, we've seen a big wave of people working in fintech. Obviously, Africa's talking was quite way ahead of that. But it's really enlightening to see now that the young entrepreneurs working in insurtech or in logistics, and now climate tech is also becoming a reality. Moringa is very excited and honored to partner with Jacob's Ladder for the hackathon. And just also talking about the value chain, as much as we're focusing on the 18 plus high school leavers, when we talk about downstream, because that's where we need to start, and again I think we're really glad that the government is taking active steps. So for example, a couple of months ago the Ministry of Education has allowed coding to be part of the mainstream syllabus for schools. So I think that's a great opportunity to start, where we teach them the basic concepts of coding, but at the same time there's an opportunity to introduce some real life problems where kids can start thinking about these solutions. Then the kids can come to a place like Moringa to do the tech training, but then to get into a meaningful job, whilst our graduates have some market skills, employers are becoming quite demanding now, because they typically want experienced talent. So how do we bridge that gap? So again, this is where Moringa is also innovating. So we're positioning ourselves as a training plus organization. So currently we are piloting on some internship programs which give our graduates some opportunity to get that real life experience. And hackathon is one area to start, where again we're giving these real life problems to the talent and saying go and find some innovative solutions, touching not only on the tech but on the financing and other parts of the value chain as well. So I think that's a great beginning, and we want to see what kind of successes we get out of that, or what seeds we can plant from that. But we'd like to also see how we can go the step further and to see can we have a deeper collaboration where we can devise some internship programs focusing on climate tech.
I think it's interesting, and your points have raised some interesting, they bring up some interesting questions, which is, on one hand, we have a lot of talent, but the question is, why is it that we're not finding jobs, but yet people are saying we don't have enough software engineers? So when you talk to people that are running companies or tech companies, they're saying we don't have the talent we need, which I guess is part of the reason why Moringa is doing what it's doing, or the fact that, as you said, you have graduates, half your intake is actually graduates, computer science graduates who need training, actually who need to come and get vocational training at Moringa. And I think for me, it then speaks to whatever industry we're talking about. So whether it's technology for technology, or now we're starting to look at climate, as it were, there is a need for not just training, but the right kind of training. Because it's one thing just to have a computer science degree, but clearly if you're finding yourself unemployable and you have to come to Moringa, then clearly something is off about the training. And so it tells me that even as we are looking at the different industries and how do we solve for the problem of unemployment, it's one thing to create jobs, and I think there needs to be policies and enabling environments that are looking at what kinds of jobs are being created. But on the flip side, we also have to make sure that our youth are actually ready, because what then would happen is if we create those jobs but our youth are not ready, we'd either have to import talent from other countries, or investors would look at it and say, okay, we can't really put a big industry here because where's the talent? I imagine the reason why you're seeing some of the bigger technology companies coming onto Kenya is because over time they're now seeing there's enough talent to actually begin to set up shop here. That probably would not have been the case 5, 10, 15 years ago. And I reckon we have to be intentional in the same way and maybe allow this to move a lot faster. So allow this, this value chain to move a bit faster. So rather than waiting for 10, 15 years to create that talent, can we shorten that time so that as we look at what is needed to develop the green economy in Africa, and here I'm thinking about some of the newer technologies that are coming up. When I think about things like green manufacturing, green hydrogen, green ammonia. So there's interesting technologies in that direction. Things like carbon capture and sequestration. So there's all these amazing technologies that are coming up in the fight against carbon emissions. But then, is our youth, is our talent ready? Do they even know that these technologies exist? What kinds of engineers are needed? What kinds of financiers are needed? So we're thinking about green financing, because that's an interesting field that's starting to become bigger and bigger as more financing is starting to get into the green space. Are chartered accountants or CFAs even aware that they need to think about green financing? For me, when I think about it, it's not only is it important to train, but it's important to train talent appropriately. And I think we have to be quite aware, or at least clear around what are the technologies, what do they need, and I guess there's the high technology, but there's also typical skills around who, if we think about solar systems, and I'm thinking, borrowing again from your previous experience at Azuri, do we have enough technicians who can actually install the kits? As we are looking to get a lot more into things like green renewable energy, and I think there's a big push right now to electric vehicles and green mobility. I think that will require some really interesting things like lithium batteries, etc. And so, do we have technicians that understand how to fix those kinds of vehicles? So, for me, when I think about it, it's a vast array of technology skills that are needed, but we have to be quite deliberate about figuring out what are those skills, and then making sure that we are creating the right kinds of training to make sure that we are preparing our young people and making sure that they are rightly matched to the skills that industry is looking for.
Wow. So I think, Billa, you've addressed the whole value chain, right? Right from the manufacturing to the carbon credits to the financing to the servicing, etc. Right? And I'm glad to say I've actually seen different elements of that in what I've done before. You talked about chartered accountants and CFAs. So yeah, there's a secret fact about me that I'm both of those, and an engineer as well. So I've got the opportunity to kind of to span all that, and there is already advancement in some of these areas. So for example, when you look at solar technicians, with there being like as many as 5 million households in Kenya using these solar systems, they require the installation, they require the servicing. So again, in my previous life, I was a board member of the Kenya Renewable Energy Authority, where we were really driving the training of the solar technicians. There was even a World Bank program to really educate in the rural areas the benefits of clean energy, and then also training up some of these agents to give them alternative income generation opportunities through solar. So and this is not something now. I mean, this has been happening, I would say, for the last 8-10 years. Green financing, all these solar systems that are out there, they're actually financed either either by banks, by some of the DFIs, and also now with more sort of energy-focused funds as well. So again, that's a reality, and it is good to see that that is got potential to move to the next level, where now the NSE is talking about issuing green bonds, which would be a first again for Kenya in Africa. But I think to really take us to the next level, I would say that the tech talent would be sort of one area where it can actually consolidate all these parts of the value chain, because if you are doing any part of this, and again, the other advantage we have in this country is the smartphone penetration is very deep. It's growing quite enormously, also helped by financing mechanism where you can get a high-end Samsung phone which people aspire to. You don't have to pay for it upfront, but you can actually use the same lookout technology that is there in some of the solar kits. So again, the advent of apps, whether you are a consumer or even working in agriculture, where we want to drive for better yields. So how can we use data, or how can the farmers use data to be more efficient? How can insurance be bundled with? So there's so many opportunities like that. And again, talking about what we do at Moringa, we don't only train on the technical side, but we also give quite a significant amount of soft skills training, where we train our talent to be entrepreneurs, to teach them some of the life skills like leadership, entrepreneurship, communication skills. So that's the kind of talent that we're churning out, and not everybody needs to go and work for a big company or a big tech.
From our conversation so far, for me, it buttresses the focus that we have at Jacob's Ladder, and this idea of taking a value chain approach to this, to the question of youth unemployment, and especially youth unemployment in climate, or how do you enhance employment opportunities in climate? It's this whole value chain approach of what aspects that do we need across the entire value chain to fix or to look into, and hopefully encourage our young people into it. And then secondly, and maybe that's where we come from, at least the perspective from which I come from, which is, what is this intersection between technology, education, and climate? At Jacob's Ladder, that intersection of climate, technology, and education is really interesting, because not only are you using two of the most important things, which is technology and education, to solve what I consider one of the biggest problems, or one of the biggest challenges of the world today. I think it's a really powerful set of tools to now bring in young people and say, okay, how do we educate you in technology, or how do we combine education and technology and transform your minds in a way that now begins to make you look at opportunities differently, or look at problems differently? So on one hand, you could look at climate and say, we are victims of climate. It's often said that Africa produces 3% of global emissions, but yet we suffer the most, or we are poised to suffer the most. And while that's true, we need to create a mindset in our young people to look at it and say, okay, but step back, or let's look back. What opportunities exist? Can we be the people, can we be at the forefront or the vanguard of providing the solutions that are needed? And what are those solutions? Can we provide jobs for ourselves? Can we enter into green manufacturing? Can we enter into green tech? Whatever that means, And of course, it's not as easy as just saying, let's transform their minds, but I think that's a really big component of pushing this value chain approach. There has to be other things that come into play. So what's the environment that is being created? Do we have the kind of financing that's needed? So encouraging more investments to come into the continent. So just the same way that happened with the tech industry in this country, how do we begin to get more of those kinds of investments, green investments coming into this country? What policies are needed? How do we make it a lot easier for people that are looking to invest in the green economy to do so? I think we were just talking earlier about different countries and how they've approached the mini solar kits. Is there something to look into that and compare lessons from where there's been a higher uptake? What government policies have been effective at making sure that happens? So I think for me, it's this idea of what's our value chain approach as far as climate technology is concerned, or climate addressing climate issues is concerned, and what then becomes the opportunities for young people in climate, and what role do we then play as far as technology and education is concerned. And that informs why the collaboration with Moringa makes sense for us, because we're quite excited about young people. We look at them and you see the potential, but we're also very clear that if we are not deliberate about intentionally harnessing that potential, then we'll just remain saying, oh, Africa has a youth bulge and we have the youngest growing population, but that's about it. We'll just be left with a lot of people that are not working, don't have dignified livelihoods, etc. And so this collaboration for me is one of those models that begins to show what is possible. Because again, it's one thing to talk about what can be done, but I think someone now has to take the step and say, okay, let's do something. Can we begin to model something around what that means, So when I think about this hackathon, for example, it's a step in that direction of saying, young people, there's opportunities in climate. Now let's give you an opportunity to actually show us your skills and take advantage of what you're learning from Moringa School, take advantage of the mentors you're getting from Jacob's Ladder, take advantage of the different trainings that we're giving you, come up with some solutions. And as we are hoping, some of the solutions that come out, we hope that they will then now get incubated and hopefully actually become bigger businesses. And not only do they create employment, but also begin to show people what's possible. So I think this idea of modeling and creating viable pilots is quite important, because if we have 1 to 10 businesses that are in the clean tech industry created by young people, of course having been supported by a range of factors, whether it's access to finance, access to mentorship, access to business development, or some of the softer skills that you were talking about. If we have a few of those, then we can scale those, or at least we can scale the knowledge of that and showcase to other people and say, this is what's possible. So young people, you could think about this as a career. Businesses, you could think about supporting young people. Governments, you need to create the environment that's needed. Financials is actually opportunities in Africa. So it's looking at those different players and saying, what message do we need to send to them to say, Africa can and should be ready for green investment. Please, can we have everyone playing their part?